Sandler's statement on the matter was, quote, "When these fine people came to me with an offer to make 4 movies for them, I immediately said yes for one reason and one reason only. Netflix rhymes with wet chicks."
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we've been covering all the fallout of COVID-19 coronavirus as far as the entertainment industry goes, and it's been an interesting week. Of course, we did cover Trolls World Tour, breaking records as far as their digital release. They went on video on demand first because theaters were shut down, and it turns out it's been a huge success for Universal Studios, and they've decided to make some changes with their strategy moving forward. And then after we talk about that, we are going to discuss a little bit about Netflix and the future of streaming. And with me to talk about these topics is my good friend Nalo. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Wes. Thanks for having me back on the channel, and interesting news happening in the entertainment industry. So excited to cover it.
Nobody really knew what to expect for a movie that was expected to have a theatrical release bypassing the theater, because there is no theater, because not every movie studio really wants to wait on your Trolls World Tour. Not everything is meant to be a blockbuster. So they decided to test the waters, release a few movies even first. You know, Artemis Fowl is going to be on Disney Plus soon. But Trolls World Tour got the first video on demand release, broke records. I believe the revenue is upwards of $100 million so far. The execs at Universal have said when they come back online that they're going to be releasing some of their movies in theater and on video on demand at the same time. And AMC was not happy.
No, they were not, and they actually lashed back out in a pretty strongly worded letter, almost as if kind of like an animal cornered starts to act pretty vicious. But I think it's a smart move. For a long time, there have been movies that come out that are almost like Netflix tier. You don't really get the big blockbuster experience. You're not going to the theater for an IMAX, and I've often been like, man, I wish I could just pay a premium to watch this at home and not have to wait an extra couple of months. So this was timed really well in that, movies, theaters, and movie studios don't want to sit on these films that are already ready, and they've already spent a ton of money on marketing this film before the virus hit. So they essentially would have lost all of that marketing budget if they didn't act. And I think they made a smart move, and they found that it was way more successful than maybe they even imagined. And they have this $100 million revenue. The video was priced at $19.99 to rent it. But what's great for Universal in this scenario is that they don't have to share 50% of those fees with theaters like AMC. So they're actually getting way more profit through this model. And it's something that they're going to now do going forward.
They can't expect this kind of success every time. Once the movie theaters open, that means basically people are going to be out of their houses. Families aren't going to be stuck at home. So we can't really predict how much movies will make if they go directly video on demand. But I certainly believe that we were going to be finding out soon, because the revenues were definitely spiked by everyone being at home and streaming right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But just to kind of cover a bit of what AMC said, they basically said that this is completely outrageous, that they essentially felt like they were stabbed in the back. And as a retaliation, they say that they will no longer carry any Universal films in their theaters. So that's things like Jurassic World or Fast and the Furious. And those are usually huge money makers for the theater. And we covered previously how AMC is kind of in a precarious financial situation, and they're trying to kind of use some sort of bullying tactics to get Universal to, walk back this plan. And with Universal seeing how successful it was, I don't really see how much leverage AMC might actually have.
Well, they have little to no leverage, because we don't even know when theaters are going to be opening up. And AMC themselves have said, when theaters do open, we won't be opening theaters until there's actually new blockbusters coming online. So even when they can open them, AMC has said they aren't going to be opening them, because they do not have a good financial situation right now. They're still, I believe, trying to secure some new means of capital to get them through these hard times. But you're right; they're really cutting their nose off to spite their face. When the next Fast and the Furious movie comes online, they're certainly not going to release that video on demand at the same time as theaters, because the amount of money they would make on a theatrical release, via IMAX and everything else. AMC is going to want to have access to that content in their theaters when it comes out. That's $1 billion franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. They might be just coming out really aggressively to, find some sort of middle ground. But what's also interesting to me is one of AMC's parent companies is China's Wanda Group. They now have a minority stake, but some news I just saw yesterday as well is that they're actually doubling down on cinema construction, and they're looking to raise $600 million from private investors. So essentially the owners, or one of the owners of AMC, is doubling down on thinking that, theaters are still going to be really popular, and this is a wise time to actually build more of them. And that's kind of contrary to what we're seeing in terms of streaming subscriptions going through the roof, people cutting the cord, the psychological damage that people may have as consumers of actually going into dark rooms with strangers to see things, which we covered in the past. And so what I'm kind of seeing is this kind of tension between, the theater owners actually doubling down on their business model and the content producers actually trying to change their business model given these changing times.
Well, China's a different animal. Their movie market, their movie industry has been growing, but it's relatively new in comparison to the United States. I think U.S. customers, we're kind of ready. We're used to streaming right now, and as a father myself with 2 kids, it's a hassle to grab 2 kids, go to the movies, you go see Trolls World Tour. You got to buy 4 drinks, one for both parents, one for the kids, popcorn, candy, and everything. It's like a $45 experience, $20 to stream it at home, and I get to eat a home cooked dinner. It's actually kind of a nice break. So I don't think AMC really does have a lot of leverage on this, and I think they're kind of going a little too hard in the paint on this one. They're going to have to end up walking it back because, like you said, Universal's making money hand over fist with this new model where they're taking all the revenue themselves, and they're not having to share nearly as much. But I can understand where AMC's coming through. They're very desperate. They're going to need to make money fast once they open their theaters back up online. And if Universal or maybe some of the other film companies decide that they're going to start dropping their movies in theater and video on demand at the same time, theaters are going to take a huge haircut, especially on the not blockbusters.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that this movie is called Trolls is kind of funny because this whole ordeal kind of feels like somebody's trolling something. And this really hit the mainstream hard. I actually found out about this news because it was the top trend on Twitter. I just caught on the side of my screen. And this got everybody talking. Everyone's kind of weighing in who are not really entertainment experts, just your average person, all has an opinion. This news kind of hit everybody, and it's making people even rethink how much they even want to go to the theaters. What I also found interesting was Trolls 1 actually got a Chinese release date before the US international. And I'm not sure if that was the case for Trolls 2, but given the fact that one of the large owners of AMC is in the Chinese market, that may have played a role in their kind of harsh reaction because maybe they were hoping that Trolls 2 would also get an early release date there. I'm not sure. But yeah, this has really opened up a can of worms of debate. And you can just see that tons of people are weighing in. The number of tweets made it that it was the top trend.
People have talked about this for years, whether, the future of the movie industry, whether it was, people having nice home theaters and just staying home and watching movies. That's what a lot of people enjoy it. Like I said, it's nice when you're single and you're taking your best gal out to the movies, for dinner, on date night, but it can be a big hassle, especially, it's an expensive proposition now. They've been raising ticket prices. That's how every year that they break records as far as revenue. It's because the ticket prices are going up because the actual amount of customers have been going down steadily for years now.
Yeah, and I think you've really said it best in the past that we're actually getting a decade of market change in a matter of months. Over the next decade is being forced upon us within 1 year. And when you think about paradigms that will be no longer, Hollywood has to get into their head that the way things were in the past is over, especially with the blockbusters not being actually filmed right now. So even when we get back open, there's going to be a glut in actual content. And people have more and more options for streaming services these days.
Speaking of streaming services, it feels like everyone's cutting the cord right now. They're subscribing to more streaming services. Disney Plus blew away expectations. Netflix subscriptions have gone up. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. We've got HBO Max coming online. We got the Peacock coming online. Hulu's there. It's becoming a really crowded market, and it really does look like digital streaming is the future as far as movies and entertainment, just period. And I think we'll see sports come on board this as well.
Yeah, times are changing really fast, and people want content more than ever, and more than ever, they might not want to go into a room with strangers to get that content. So, we're really seeing this play out on a really accelerated timeline. Check out our previous video in the past about AMC's financials. They're not really that great. They are one of the largest. They are the largest cinema owner in the United States, and their parent company owns theaters in China as well as across EU. So they're going to be waking up to a harsh reality, or maybe they already have. And I'm curious to see which movies perform well on streaming, and if they kind of continue this dual release structure as we open up back up the economy.
Well, I definitely stand by my belief that the movie theater has slowly been moving to an experience industry rather than a service industry. And I think it's going to become even more of a niche experience industry with high-end movie theaters that are dinner theaters where you get a pretty nice meal to go with your movie, or there's like a cool bowling alley or some type of retro arcade that's available there as well, to where it's a full entertainment experience rather than just a movie going experience.
Yeah, those kind of experiences are probably what would entice me to actually go to a theater. Otherwise, I might just want to wait for it to be available to stream. I think with the entertainment industry heading into 2020, we started to see fundamental pillars starting to crack, and now they're actually starting to crumble quite quickly. And we're shifting into this streaming model.
Yeah, speaking of the streaming model, like I mentioned, we were going to talk a little bit about Netflix. So they have added 15 million subscribers through streaming already in 2020. Their projection, I believe, was 7.5 million for the entire year. But everyone being home, everyone's binging content. Netflix has the largest amount of content available, and people are really taking advantage. I think I've mentioned that Netflix had 120 million subscribers worldwide. I was very wrong on that. It's actually 180 million subscribers worldwide now. Way more than their nearest competitors. I believe Disney Plus is down at 50, and Hulu's at 33 million. I'm not sure the exact numbers on Amazon Prime. They are the go-to place for streaming right now, and they are really piling up subscribers.
And they already were taking a stab at actually producing films that would be released in theaters and then very quickly be available on the Netflix platform. And they actually had some amazing ones. They had this Buster Scruggs Western movie, I'm probably mispronouncing it, by the Coen brothers. They had Martin Scorsese, and they had this director that I'm personally a fan of called Noah Baumbach with Adam Driver, this movie called Marriage Story. So actually, by the end of 2019, we were actually seeing Netflix really become a real player in the actual content production area, where they're actually making really well-known directors, movie theater quality content, and then they were releasing it on their streaming platform within a month. If they can continue to do that, they can completely maybe bypass theaters and get these kind of top-tier Hollywood movies on their service, in addition to all the kind of shows, viral documentaries like Tiger King. We see that a Michelle Obama documentary is coming out, and she has her own following of people who would want to watch that. And so Netflix just seems to be snagging win after win after win, even though these are really difficult times.
One of the things that was kind of holding Netflix back as far as getting talent was if you didn't meet specific criteria as far as releasing in theater first and having your debut there, you couldn't be eligible for like award seasons, your Oscars and everything like that. And Netflix has definitely decided to attack that problem. You've seen some of these higher profile movies that they have confidence in getting a theatrical release, limited normally, although some of them seem to be a little bit more wide now. And they're definitely moving forward as maybe, I think in a few years, they might be the biggest movie producer in the world.
Yeah, it seems like they're on that path. And we even, we like to cover comics mostly on this channel. What was always shocking to me is I had this Mark Millar book that was released by Image. And on the back of the book is just the Netflix logo. So it's just like, this comic book is brought to you by Netflix. This is like a preview of the show that's going to be coming out. And just more and more of where I look, whether it's like big name directors, independent comics, seems like Netflix is kind of permeating everywhere we look.
One of the other things that Netflix we just got word on is that they're actually going to raise another $1 billion in debt. As analysts have downgraded their stocks after quarter one from phenomenal. This seems like a good thing for the market. Some companies have had a lot of issues raising capital right now, but it's good to see Netflix out on the market and showing that money is available.
Yeah, so this kind of bond offering is a positive sign for the market, even though the market doesn't make much sense these days with the kind of federal intervention. I'm not a bond expert by any means, but they are trying to raise $2 billion in corporate bonds split equally between US dollars and the European market. And Netflix as a bond is actually rated as a junk bond, meaning that it has high risk. That's because Netflix has so much debt already. But the fact that this bond offering was actually oversubscribed because people are seeing that Netflix is going to really kind of weather this storm as their subscriber numbers keep going up. And this is a good sign for the market that people are actually willing to buy these junk bonds and actually have an appetite for risk. And it kind of speaks to the fact that the Federal Reserve's intervention into kind of supporting lending to banks is actually making its way into these companies so they can finance acquisitions or new studio production. And yeah, so it's interesting times that this kind of junk rated bond is actually oversubscribed. The demand for it is through the roof and kind of shows that, potentially we're reaching some sort of stabilization in the market.
And it certainly shows the amount of confidence the public and investors have in Netflix moving forward. And as far as it's standing in the conscience of people right now, I think people know that Netflix feels like a stable company is going to be there in the future.
And the fact that they're returning to this junk bond market to fuel a spending spree is, they're kind of looking for ammunition to continue their fight in the streaming war. And, they released this Tiger King that had over 34 million Americans watch it within even the first 10 days. So they are really on the right track here to kind of upend the entertainment industry as we know it, and definitely on an accelerated time frame this time.
Nalo, thank you so much for joining me today. We had a lot of very interesting things. I don't know how this is going to work out for AMC moving forward, deciding that they're not going to carry Universal movies. I think they're going to walk that one back a bit. I think they might have taken the words of Universal a little bit too literal. I don't think everything from Universal will get a video on demand release at the same time as a theatrical release. They're certainly not going to do that for a lot of their big blockbusters when they know they can double dip into both of those markets. But certainly family films and some of these mid-budget types films, simultaneous releases on both markets make sense moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll kind of keep track of this as it evolves. The news these days seems to be accelerating quickly in this kind of subplot of entertainment and streaming wars, and it's exciting to track.
All right, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Wes.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat po, and I'm out.